Hey everybody, I'm Aaron Simmons. This is Philosophy for Where We Find Ourselves, July 25th, 2020. So we're going to continue on in our series of a philosophical consideration of the 7 deadly sins. We've looked at pride, so today we're going to look at greed. Now, in order to have a philosophical definition of greed, I want to propose the following. Greed is when you care more about your wants than you do about the needs of others. It's when you prefer your excess over others enough. Now, this is an idea that we could draw from a variety of cultural traditions and great ideas. For example, even in the Hebrew Bible, when the Hebrews received the manna from God, they were prohibited from taking more than they needed for that day. The idea being that trying to create excess missed the point of everyone being able to have enough to move forward as a community. But we could also turn to the philosopher John Locke. Now, Locke is famous for his defense of private property, and in many ways, the American idea of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is a tweak of Locke's account that life and liberty required a particular relationship to property rights. Now, his account of property is quite fascinating. He understood that the entire natural world was given to the collective of humanity by God. God gave the world to all of us in common. But how do we transfer that common property to be the specific property of this or that person? For Locke, his answer is that we work it. So when we put our labor into the common resource, it then transfers ownership to us in particular. But importantly, Locke placed restrictions on how this worked. You could only work and labor enough of the land, enough of the natural resource, so that you didn't impinge on the ability and the good of others also to get what they need. Notice again, his account here is that we've got to take care of our needs, but we've got to restrict our wants so that the needs of others can also be met. Now, eventually, he'll even claim that if you have taken so much for yourself that it has impinged on another, they actually have legitimate right to your property to prevent them from extreme want. Now, this is an interesting claim. It's the idea that the commonality of our natural resources, the commonality of the goods of the world, is shared such that when we pull it apart and make it our own as an individual, we do this still with a relationship and a responsibility to the common, to humanity as such. I think this is a helpful idea because instead of it being, hey, I can build my wealth and make it grow as big as I want, and it doesn't matter then what happens to others because I've worked hard for my money, what Locke reminds us is when you work, you transfer to yourself, but that does not excuse your responsibility to care for others. And in doing this, we've got to make sense of the idea that extreme excess is actually a moral failure in relationship to extreme need continuing in the world. That's where greed becomes a vice. Greed is vicious because it privileges our expansion of excess over other people being able to have enough such that the basic equality of the human experience can be ensured. So, as we think about greed, let's recognize that it is a moral question, but it's a moral question anchored also in the way that we understand our shared relationships together. Next time, we'll move on to another deadly sin from a philosophical perspective. I hope to see you then, unless a piano falls on our heads.